welcome to our webinar today. So my name is Hasan Deniz. I'm the Director of Center for Math, Science and Engineering Education at UNLV. So we are going to cover 5 NSF programs today. So we are going to start first with Dr. Elsa Gonzalez IU's HSI program. And then Dr. Crystal Smith will cover EHR core research and advanced programs. Dr. Toya Frank will cover racial equity and STEM education. And Dr. Michelle Rogers will cover inclusive programs. Our own Dr. Blanca Rincon will cover our question and answer session. She is going to moderate questions, and please submit your questions through Zoom Q&A function, but at the same time, you can raise your hand through the Zoom, raise your hand function and ask your questions that way. So each presenter, each program is going to take about 12 minutes to cover the program. So we intend to cover all these 5 programs in 60 minutes, and then we are going to spend 25 to 30 minutes for questions and answers. So with that, I'm going to just leave the stage for Dr. Elsa Gonzalez.
Thank you, Dr. Deniz. Let me share my screen. Well, hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. And thank you again for hosting us, the UNLV, the College of Education, and the Dr. Rincon and Dr. Deniz. We really appreciate the institution that is hosting us today, and we're honored to have you to be here with you and with the participants and answering some questions. I'm gonna talk from the Improving Undergraduate STEM Education and Hispanic Service Institution program, the HSI program, and we are starting with moving the needle and delivering NSF grants for greater equity. And what we do in the HSI program probably is gonna answer these questions: how we're moving the needle. I'm gonna start with the goals of the HSI program. The goals of our program is enhance the quality of undergraduate. And one of the goals, the first goal of our program is enhance the quality of undergraduate STEM education and increase the recruitment, retention, and graduation rates of students pursuing associates or baccalaureate degrees in STEM fields at HSI. We try to address several strategies to achieve these goals, and one of them is building capacity at HSIs to innovative approaches. We incentivize institutional and community transformation, particularly one of the tracks, and I'm gonna try to address that in the rest of the presentation. And we try to also promote fundamental research in 3 particular areas: engaging students' learning, what it takes to diversify and increase participation in STEM effectively, and how to build institutional capacity at HSIs. As you can see with these strategies, we're trying to move the needle, and we're trying to move for greater equity in HSIs. One of the review criteria that we have on the HSI program, besides broader impact and the merit review, is intersectional review. Intersectionality review is we ask the reviewers to comment on how well the proposals address intersection on gender, race, and ethnicity with other characteristics in both the intellectual merit and broader impacts of the proposals. We try that these HSI proposals are expected to take an intersectional approach in the proposal design, during the research, during the evaluation, and during the data collection. So as you can see, as we address intersectionality in those proposals, so we evaluate intersectionality in those proposals, we're trying to move the needle. Our HSI program has 3 tracks. Some of you may be familiar with them. The track 1 focusing planning or pilot projects, the track 2 and implementation and evaluation projects, and track 3 institutional transformation projects. These 3 tracks has different these projects are with different duration. The track 1, we look for 2 years project. Track 2 from 3 to 5 years projects, and track 3, since we are focusing on institutional transformation, we're looking in 5 years long projects. The funding goes also according with those the different tracks, and we have different deadlines. Right now we just passed one for track 1, 2, and 3, and in August is our next track, our next deadline for track 1 and 3. Also, we promote collaborations, and as you can see, there is we incentivize collaborations with additional funding if these proposals collaborate with a community college or partner with one or more community college, or they are collaborative projects, and as you can see, different funding amounts. We also, in the HSI program, and sometimes it's not well known, we support conference proposals, and those can be submitted at any time by institutions of higher education, including non-HSIs, but they have to address an HSI project, they have to have a collaboration. And one of the things that they can be, again, addressed at any point, and just contact one of the program officers. In the beginning of the presentation, I mentioned my name, and I think I didn't introduce myself. I'm Elsa Gonzalez, one of the program officers, and also you can contact our colleague, that is Dr. Tatiana Camacho, that she couldn't join us today. Another, this is very common for any of our the proposals, and in the HSI program review, we focus on the strength concerns on intellectual merit, the broader impact, and a summary statement. And all the documents that they are very common, again, for several of our any proposals in NSF, those are the ones that are listed here. From data narrative, from data letters of collaboration, that in our case on HSI, we have letters of collaboration, but also as a supplemental document. And in those ones, we try to evaluate what are the collaborations and who are other institutions are supporting these projects. And I can talk a little bit more in any question, if you have any questions about those documents. Once the first thing that we suggest is, once you have the solicitations, while you read the solicitation, what you have to do next. And in order to prepare a proposal, you start with a good idea and try to communicate it clearly. Focus on the 2 merit review criteria, intellectual merit and broader impact, and in intersectionality, as I commented earlier before. State your research objectives and questions, as well as your plans for evaluations. Several times, they need to be very clearly stated, so it's easy for our reviewers to see what is the research objectives of the project. Have plans for carry out the proposed work, and grounded the project in appropriate literature. Sometimes even perhaps STEM education, but it can be like in gender equity and HSI literature, so you can support what you are, how you are addressing and how you are using the literature that is out there. Get appropriate expertise in your board. We understand that PI it could be the expert of everything. So as you have collaborators, but also you have expertise in your board that can support different parts of your project. And ask colleagues inside and outside your field to read and critique your proposal before you submit it. Another point for prepare competitive proposals is include strong arguments for the importance of the problem. Make sure the STEM content is clearly articulated. Many times include examples, and make sure the research design and the methodology are appropriate and sufficiently discussed. It can be a quantitative or qualitative methodology, but you need to explain it clearly. make a good connection between the lit review, the development, the process, the research question, the data collection, data analysis. So as any research project, we need to have all the pieces and they need to connect and flow well. And also make sure you clearly explain the impacts of the research and the development that is addressed. Some helpful hints that we sometimes, that we share, read the program solicitation several times, as I mentioned. It has sometimes they are long and they have several details, so try to look on the different details and talk with the sponsor project officers. Talk with your sponsor project office that sometimes they have deadlines. Your university may have, your institution may have some limited submissions, and you need to know that. Get approvals for your IRB, your institutional review board, and also check about institutional academic care and any use committee approvals. I think that's the next scheme is a recommendation for any project that you address. Work in a project that you care deeply, and so you can communicate that in your narrative of your project and build on what others have done. We in HSI support projects that it can be replications or can be adaptations of strategies that are already proved and based practice and theory based. So use those and to put together your project. Think global, act local and global. Try to think within the impact of your research and your projects. But also at the same time have measurable goals and objectives. And as I mentioned before, think in teamwork, because as I said, a solo PI may not be the expert on everything, but it can have different collaborators, co-PIs, investigators, your evaluator, the members of your board, that everyone brings something to your project, and that can be reflected in the narrative of your project. In the last, this one, talk with NSF program officers, talk with us. Contact us, email us. We are very responsive in the HSR program, and I'm sure in the rest of our, the programs or the program officers who are here today. And send us 1 to 3, hopefully 1-page summary of your project, your idea, and make an appointment, and then we can get together and so we can hear more about your project, and we can share what requirements, limitations, and the current program patterns that we have. Use good management skills, create a timeline, start early, don't wait until the end or very close to the due date of the solicitation. Like we mentioned, work with your sponsor project officer and the budget. Sometimes is what it takes longer to put together the budget and your idea. Make it connect and evaluate the impact and effectiveness of your project. And spread the word and talk with other PIs. Several times you find from your colleagues a lot of words of advice. The HSI expertise on panels, and that's something that I think is important, that the PI, so when you put together your proposals, when we have panels, we look for STEM disciplinary faculty, student support professionals, financial aid professionals, administrators, educators, researchers, evaluators, industry representatives, and faculty administrators and staff from 2- and 4-year institutions, because all of them bring a different perspective, an important perspective to the evaluation process. So it's important that you know that your proposals are going to be read from all these different people who bring different expertise to those panels. I want to mention briefly some flaws that may happen. That sometimes we assume that the lines are not firm. They are. Assume that the page limits and font size doesn't matter. They do matter. Substituting flowway rhetoric for good examples. Not checking your spelling. Assuming that the program guidelines have not changed. They change. So read very well our guidelines. Assuming the website is sufficient for dissemination. There is several things that you can use for dissemination. And in general, not following instructions. Read, this is why we keep telling you, read several times the solicitation. All these questions are the ones who you need to address in order to, when you're putting together your projects. What will be the outcomes? Those are the questions that we try to respond as we read your proposals. What is your approach promising? How will others find out about your work? How will your project be maintained beyond the life of the award? I mean, all those different things are things that need to be response in your proposals. The data narrative is very important, and each proposal should include institutional narrative, describing and contextualizing the institution need for this proposal project. Particularly in HSIs, we look a lot for the narrative that describes your HSI institution. Once again, start early, read the program solicitation, contact any of the program officers. In the HSI program, we have 4 program officers. From one of the divisions, we have 2 divisions. So in total, we have 8 program officers that can answer any of your questions. Become an NSF reviewer. You can become an NSF rotator. And please volunteer to be a reviewer. And you can subscribe also to our news at NSF. And here are several resources that you can use for your HSI, for your institution. And again, contact us and contact all the different helps that you can find in our different websites. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us. I am a program director at NSF. I'm assigned to both ECR and advanced. So I'm going to be covering those 2 programs today. These are just going to be brief overviews, and I encourage you to reach out to us. And I'll talk a little bit about that at the end of these presentations. First, the first program is ECR, which we fund fundamental research, research that's curiosity-driven, use-inspired, and contributes to a general explanatory knowledge that underlines STEM education. When we talk about fundamental research, we're talking about generating knowledge and understanding with the potential for broad relevance. The research is grounded or guided by theoretical frameworks that inform the research questions, the methods, and the analyses. At this point, I just want to mention that the theoretical frameworks that in the proposals that we fund tend to be from the social sciences. So I encourage you, I always encourage prospective PIs to reach out to their colleagues in the social sciences to work with them on developing proposals, making sure that the research that they propose have theoretical frameworks that guide and support them. And with fundamental research, it's not necessarily the case that the findings will generate immediate applications. Rather, we talk about the broader impacts. The findings themselves have implication for policy and practice once they're published and shared with policymakers and stakeholders. We talk about 3 main research areas, but I want to, before I go cover these 3 research areas, I just want to mention that there are other research areas as well. These are not the only ones that ECR funds, but these are the 3 research areas that we tend to fund. Research on STEM learning and learning environments. So we fund research that studies learning on the level of the student, the instructor, the learning environment, or the broader institutional context. We also the other research area is research in broadening the participation in STEM, and that's my area of expertise. My research focuses on broadening participation, which is NSF's term for diversity, inclusion, and equity in STEM. Broadening participation research may focus on individuals or groups. For example, it could focus on Hispanic students, Hispanic faculty, Black students, Black faculty. So it can focus on groups, or it can focus on organizations. And we tend to look at how these groups, either, I should also mention, not just race and ethnicity, but also gender, sexual orientation, but also underserved students, first generation students. So people, groups that are marginalized, or who have been, who traditionally have not been at the forefront of participating in STEM disciplines. We also, our third research area focuses on STEM workforce development. We fund research that look at basic questions about how best to prepare the STEM workforce to capitalize on the latest advances and innovations in technology and science, and also how to address current and future social and economic challenges. Of particular interest are frontier topics in education and training of the workforce for industries of tomorrow. We're interested in research that is pushing the boundaries, explores pushing the boundaries of technology use, like AI, and learning in the STEM workplace, and how these advances impact and change the learning for the STEM workforce. I'm just going to cover some topic clusters. Again, these are not all the areas of topics that we fund, but these are some of the main ones that have been submitted that are part of our portfolio. Diversity, equity, and access and inclusion in STEM education and the STEM workforce. Cognitive and neural underpinnings of STEM learning, discipline-based education research in STEM. Factors such as institutional, structural, organizational, societal levels that impact STEM teaching, learning, and participation in STEM education and the workforce. Factors that cultural, affective, psychological, demographic that affect STEM learning, teaching, and participation in the STEM workforce. And just to continue to touch on some of the topic clusters: research on technology-enabled learning, studies of diffusion of knowledge and research in translation and implementation of advances in STEM education and the STEM workforce development, advances in methodology, measurement, assessment in STEM education and workforce development research, policy research that builds on and expands theoretical foundations for evaluating STEM education and STEM workforce development initiatives, and other topics that involve fundamental research in STEM learning and the STEM learning environment, broadening participation in STEM and the STEM workforce development. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. And, if you have another idea that you think would fit into ECR, we encourage you to reach out to us. In terms of the different proposal types, we have three main levels. Well, before I mention this, one thing I do want to say, when for proposals, we encourage PIs to identify the research area that they believe that their proposal falls under. I can fall under, more than one of those three research areas, or even a new research area that you want to propose. So we have three proposal types. We have level 1, which is a maximum of $500,000, and then level 2, which is a maximum of $1.5 million, and level 3, which is a maximum of $2.5 million. We fund pilot studies. So if you have a research and you believe that collecting some pilot data would strengthen a proposal later on, or some other endeavor you have in mind, we will fund pilot studies. Again, however, it'll be only at the level 1. We fund, since this proposals at level 1 and level 2. We also fund conference proposals. So if you have an idea for a conference that revolves around STEM education or any of the ECR research areas, you can submit a proposal, and it would be reviewed. And if we feel it's appropriate for ECR and it in terms of fundamental research, then it's something that we would fund. Now, most ECR proposals range from 3 to 5 years, regardless of what level that you're on. We also fund BICSR, which is Building Capacity in STEM Education Research, and that focuses on faculty who might be interested in developing certain professional development skills in the field of STEM education research. That's a specific program for funding that type of research. We also have Career, which focuses on funding the research and contributing to the careers of faculty, junior faculty, as they move up. The eager mechanism is also one that I myself have been funded. If you have a research idea that's considered innovative, transformative, cutting edge, that is an idea, a type of a research that we'd be interested in funding. Maybe there isn't a lot of research in that area, so you don't feel that a full proposal is appropriate, but you want to explore. It can be qualitative, it could be exploratory. The eager mechanism is available. Also, we have the rapid, which is a mechanism for quick funding. If there's a topic that we're particularly interested in. For example, when the COVID pandemic started, we put out a call for proposals that looked at issues around COVID and STEM education, and we used the rapid mechanism was used to fund those proposals. The next ECR proposal deadline is October the 6th in 2022. So if you do have an idea, if you want to develop a proposal, reach out to your colleagues in the social sciences. You have ample amount of time. And I always encourage people to start early, putting together your team. An interdisciplinary team is usually, brings people with different types of strengths to your proposal and will strengthen it. This is the website. You can easily do a Google search for NSF ECR. We have a general email address. What we encourage you to, if you have an idea, we encourage you to write a one-pager that gives an overview of your project. You might want to put in also a paragraph on intellectual merit and broader impacts, which are review categories, and send it to the general mailbox, and you'll be directed to a program officer who has an expertise in the field, the area that you're proposing your research. When I myself had been funded by ECR, I'm an anthropologist. My research looked at broadening participation of underrepresented groups in STEM education. I had been funded, I think, 3 times by ECR. And I always took advantage of the opportunity to, send one-pagers to the POs, to meet with the POs, program directors, and talk to them about my idea, flesh it out, see if it fits. First of all, see if it fits ECR, but also, we can, if you have questions, we're happy to talk to you. And not enough people reach out to us. We're there to be a resource. And I encourage you to contact us as you develop your proposal. You can meet with us multiple times. And that's, we're happy to do so. Now I'm going to go ahead and cover, give an overview of the advanced program. Advance is, focuses on organizational change for gender equity in STEM academic professions. We always talk about, rather than fixing the women or groups that are marginalized, we focus on fixing the systems and the organizations that impact STEM academic careers. Here are some examples of some of the organizational and systemic issues that Advance projects, proposals address: recruitment and retention, tenure, promotion policies and practices, work-life balance and career flexibility policies, salary startup packages, access to resources, institutional service allocations requirements, committees, mentoring, for example, the culture and climate of organizations and departments, accountability of STEM leadership, commitment to diversity, narrow definitions of academic STEM excellence, non-critical reliance on traditional ideals. What we're looking for in the advanced programs are systemic and organization change that will lead to long-term change in STEM academic departments and colleges. There are three main types of awards in an advance. The first one is the catalyst. The catalyst is many institutions apply for the catalyst before applying for other advanced grants. Because it allows them to collect data on their own institution to pilot potential strategies and develop a 5-year STEM faculty equity plan. The Catalyst Award is up to $300,000 over 2 years. It's awarded to academic institutions that have not had an institutional transformation or an adaptation award. The scope it includes all STEM disciplines, so you can focus on any STEM discipline or maybe all at your institution. The target date for the advanced catalyst this year is August the 5th. However, we will accept proposals before or after that particular target date. The next type of award, advanced award, is at the adaptation. In the adaptation proposals, we look for there are a number of evidence-based gender equity strategies that have been developed by previous advanced awardees that we encourage the proposals to adapt for the PIs to adapt for their own institutions. It's up to $1 million over 3 years. The money the award can increase to $1.25 million with collaboration with NSF projects. It's awarded to institutions that have not had an IT institutional transformation award or an adaptation before. The scope can include all any of the STEM disciplines at the institution. For the adaptation, we do require a letter of intent, and the letter of intent is pretty short, but it does give us an idea of which strategies you intend to adapt for your institution and how you're conceptualizing that adaptation. Once the letter of intent is reviewed, you would be either encouraged to submit a full proposal or encouraged to revisit your idea. The full proposal is due on November the 2nd. And the third advanced award is the institutional transformation. And in this one, we asked, this involves the whole institution being involved in an innovative organizational change. It's developed, implemented, the study, it has a research component to it. So it's to look at propose innovative organizational change and strategies to foster gender equity and conduct original research. So it has a research component. Typically, it's similar to the ECR in the sense that it's a social science research theoretically guided research. It's up to $3 million over 5 years. It involves while adaptation can involve partnerships with other academic institutions. The institutional transformation award is one single institution that's never had an IT before. And again, the scope includes all the STEM disciplines. The target date for the IT, you're required to submit a preliminary proposal, and that's due in April of each year. And the next submission date is April the 29th. So that's coming up really quickly. The full proposal will then be due in October, and that's only if you're encouraged to submit it after submitting the preliminary. The next due date is October the 6th for the full proposal. However, we will accept proposals before and after that particular date. Finally, Jessie Diaro is the lead for the advanced program. Tatiana Camacho is also a program director and our AAAS fellow, Science and Technology fellow, is Dr. Utibe Burkham Wright. We're all available to meet with you. This is the general advanced email address. You can go to the websites, both for core and to advanced, to learn more about these programs. You can read the solicitations. I know sometimes if this is the first time you're applying for NSF proposal through EHR, that the proposals they're a bit long and they can be confusing. So I encourage you to reach out to us, and you can schedule a meeting. We're happy to meet with you. The advanced team, we meet with prospective PIs all the time. And you can also, if you don't feel prepared to meet, you can email us questions if you prefer to take that approach.
Good afternoon. I'm Toya Jones-Frank. I am a program officer here at National Science Foundation in the Division on Research on Learning in Formal and Informal Settings. And I am here representing the Racial Equity and STEM Education program, for which I am co-lead. And so our program description, and I'll talk a little bit about program description and a program in just a moment. Our program description cuts across the Education and Human Resources Directorate. So as you can see, there are many of us, Crystal being one of the members of our team, and we all work across the different divisions. So this is a directorate-wide program description, which means we like to say that our research goes from the cradle all the way through life cycle. So just a little bit about what I want to share in the next few minutes with you. So what distinguishes us as a program description versus a standard program, and a little bit of news I'd like to foreshadow a little bit and tell you all about some exciting news coming, and then a little bit about what our program description entails, and then some nuts and bolts about proposal writing and preparation and some resources. So as I noted earlier, we are a program description at the moment, which means that if you were to look up our program description, you will see that it is quite short. We often get the question, is this it? And yes, at the moment, that is it. So it's a general area of interest. So the goal of this program is to fund projects and research that address systemic racism and advance racial equity. So that is the general area of interest. So there are at the moment, no additional announcements. And so we just ask that everyone use the proposal award and policies, procedures, guidelines for preparation. You might hear me refer to what we call the PAPG again in this presentation. So just a bit of an overview about what is important to us in this particular program description. Oh, and before I do that, I would like to say that we are currently anticipating moving from a program description to a full solicitation. And so I'll talk about this a little bit more when I discuss our deadlines, because it may shift some things around funding amounts and those sorts of things. And so we're really excited about the idea of moving from a description to a more permanent program. And so we may have a solicitation on the horizon, and I'll speak to that again shortly, but I wanted to mention it. So in terms of project context, as I mentioned before, as long as you are within the STEM, the realm of STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and other domains supported by NSF, these are some of this is by no means an exhaustive list, but these are some of the possible contexts for which we can support. So educational institutions all the way from pre-K, elementary and secondary, early childhood education through graduate, municipal organizations, workplace, because we also support workforce development projects, and informal STEM contexts, community groups, religious organizations. So just thinking of some things that aren't necessarily on this list, but this is not at all an inclusive list. And as a matter of fact, we also like when we get projects that cut across different contexts. So universities working with communities, et cetera. So this is by no means an exhaustive list of places where projects may be funded. So with respect to a competitive proposal, we are looking for proposals that are very specific in that they should do the following. They should they should speak clearly to how the work advances racial equity within STEM education and how their work addresses systemic racism in that specific context. Of course, we know that systemic racism is broad in nature. And so we know that projects would by no means dismantle or address systemic racism broadly, but we are asking that projects take up the question, how do systemic barriers impact access, retention, and success in STEM education research or workforce development? So across one of those areas, how does the project both operationalize systemic racism and how it plays out in a context, and how does what is proposed address that systemic racism issue and advance racial equity? And across the program, these are some of the goals. So within our program and across the projects that we fund, we hope to advance the science and promotion of racial equity in STEM education. So as someone has mentioned, we discussed broadening participation in STEM, and we would say within our program description, we not only address broadening participation, but we also acknowledge that sometimes the structures in which folks are intended to participate in sometimes have underlying systemic issues. And so our goal is to advance the science and promotion of racial equity. So how do we mitigate some of those structures as we try to broaden participation? We also hope that work in this program helps to remove systemic barriers that impact STEM education, workforce, and scientific advancement. Because we are looking at systemic racism, we hope that we will fund projects that institutionalize effective, inclusive, supportive environments for STEM learning, STEM research, and STEM professionals. Another goal is to diversify project leadership. So for us, that is PIs and co-PIs at institutions. So that is another goal of ours, to diversify who leads projects. And we hope to expand the array of epistemologies, perspectives, experiences. I'll add methodological approaches in STEM education. So we often get questions whether we fund qualitative or quantitative, both, and mixed methods, whether we fund from particular theoretical frameworks. We fund theoretical frameworks that move us toward advancing the science and promotion of racial equity in STEM education, which means that we are, as I would say, most programs are here at NSF, open to transformative and novel approaches to thinking about STEM education. And then here are just some of the ways that proposers may talk about how they will generate knowledge, because this is this is a research-focused program. So folks may want to build theory or develop methods or test approaches and interventions. People may be looking at scalability of existing approaches and interventions. They may be cultivating and assessing, they should be cultivating and assessing authentic partnerships with communities that they hope to do research with and not on. Projects can also look at reshaping institutional and organizational structures in the name of advancing racial equity. And they could also be looking at effective behavioral, cultural, or social components related to STEM education. So in terms of leadership, as I mentioned, diversifying projects leadership is one of the goals of the program. And with that in mind, we do This is one we do not have special criteria, but I do sometimes call these the hallmarks of our program. And one of them is this idea of leadership and partnership. So we are interested in work that is either led by or developed and in authentic partnerships with communities that are most impacted by or that are impacted by inequities caused by systemic racism. So in this particular proposal writing scenario, that might mean, or it likely means that, projects will contain some sort of positionality statement, a discussion of how perhaps researchers have come in contact with communities and built strong relationships so that work is being done in partnerships with communities experiencing systemic racism. And by doing that, it's our hope that the voices and the experiences of those impacted by systemic racism are at the center of the proposal. And so for us, highlighting and centering those voices should come out in project leadership or research positions. It might come out in like who is on an advisory board, how the project is conceptualized and the decision-making processes. So it could be like member checking with groups. It could mean thinking about reliability and validity in terms of what is important to that community. These are just some examples. And of course, how work is interpreted and disseminated post research. So where is the work disseminated? How is it made accessible? How is it interpreted? We are always looking for work that is asset focused and thinking about the strengths of communities. And so how work is interpreted and disseminated is really important. So just a few nuts and bolts to try to honor our time together. So as I mentioned before, we are across the Directorate of Education and Human Resources. Because we are currently a program description, we do not have minimums and maximums in this program, but that may soon change pending approval of our program solicitation. So please keep your eyes and ears open this summer. There should be more information coming. If we switch over to a solicitation, we're going to do some webinars that are just outreach webinars regardless. So please stay abreast of our program by visiting our page. But for sure, if we are to switch over to a solicitation, we will have some funding limits and we'll make that information available this summer. The one thing that I will point out is that typically when we get proposals about health and medicine, they're usually under the domain of NIH. Unless they are specific to like supporting biology students who have aspirations of going to medical school, because the biology piece is the piece that is more STEM focused than medical focused. But if there are questions, as other people have mentioned, we do a lot of outreach. We do a lot of consultation. Please do not hesitate to reach out and talk with us. So in terms of our target deadlines, we had 3 this year, 3 this funding cycle. We had July, October, and we recently just had our March proposal target deadline, our proposal submitted for March. Our next target deadline will be October of 2022. And as I mentioned, we may be moving from that description to a solicitation. So please be on the lookout for that. And we are currently submitting, accepting proposals through research.gov and grants.gov. If you are interested, if you think you have an idea that fits nicely with the way the things that I've shared with you today about our program, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. You are welcome to send us. We welcome one-page concept papers. I will be very honest, there's been a lot of interest in our program, which excites us, but it does mean that we need time to process. So we're usually at about 2 to 3 weeks for a response. And we try in our response to set up a time for you to meet with someone on our team. But for sure, around 6 weeks prior to and after the target date, we are usually doing paneling. So we know during those times, we are a bit slower in responding to concept papers. And then just in terms of the concept papers, you want to think about how you, within the one pager, you may want to frame it around how your project or your proposal would address racial equity and systemic racism, how it is either led by or in partnership with communities impacted by systemic racism, and usually writing to those two like I said, hallmarks of our program is a good starting point for a conversation. And we try to talk in light of the program description during those one-page conversations. As I mentioned before, we use the PAC-G right now as guiding because we do not have specific guidelines because we do not yet have a solicitation. But as with all proposals across NSF, proposals go through review. We use the NSF criteria of intellectual merit and broader impact. And this is just some basic information about intellectual merit in terms of the knowledge that's created, and the broader impact is how the projects will have impact on society at large. And as mentioned before, using the PAC-G, we use the standard setup for proposals. Things that are really important to us, as I mentioned before, the dissemination plan, particularly with respect to community and those impacted by systemic racism. And at the moment, because we do not have a formal solicitation and we are project description, we do try to use the rule of thumb that projects in our directorate tend to run between 3 to 5 years, but we don't have specified budget limits. We do take conference proposals, and we will know more about eagers and rapids and those mechanisms. We do take careers in racial equity. As a matter of fact, we were able to support 5 this past award cycle. So we do take careers under the racial equity program. And this is just a timeline that we'd like to share. We've started adding this to our presentation so that folks realize that it takes, give or take around 6 months for proposals to come in and to go all the way through the award or decline process. So when submitting, we tend to put this in because we get a lot of first-time proposers in our program. So we like to be really transparent and just share that it takes us at least, give or take, 6 months. This first cycle has been a bit slower. We have yet to fund as we are learning all of the mechanisms within NSF to get a new program off the ground. But here are just some general resources. I'm happy to share my slides and information, and then I'll be happy to take any questions or concerns that you have. Thank you.
So good afternoon. My name is Michelle Rogers. I'm from the SISE Directorate, which is Computing and Information Science and Engineering. Really long phrase shortened by this SISE acronym. I am the co-lead for NSF Includes, which is a really long name, inclusions across the nation of communities of learners, of underrepresented students in engineering and science. And I'm the co-lead for NSF Includes. The lead program director of NSF Includes is Tori Smith, who is out of EHR and HRD. So just to give you some background about NSF Includes, in 2013, NSF has a committee on equal opportunities in science and engineering. And this committee recommended that NSF undertake a bold new initiative to broaden participation in STEM. So as a result of that, NSF is established Includes. So this program was established, one of 10 big ideas for future NSF investment. And so this cross-national and this comprehensive national initiative is designed to enhance U.S. leadership in discovery and innovation by focusing on diversity, inclusion, and broadening participation in STEM, but at scale. Excuse me. And so that's one of the things that makes NSF Includes slightly different. The vision of NSF Includes has to do with catalyzing the STEM enterprise to work collaboratively. So we're looking at networks, not just single institutions, but these networks of institutions that can work collaboratively for inclusive change, resulting in a STEM workforce that reflects the population of the nation. And so as you see, we have 5 design elements that we ask each of our submitters to include, that in order to reach this collaborative infrastructure, we're asking that this network foster collaboration by focusing on these 5 design elements that share vision, partnerships, goals and metrics, leadership and communication, and then finally, expansion, sustainability, and scale. And so starting in 2018 and 2019, throughout those years, we funded 2 cohorts of alliances that met this solicitation need. In addition to funding alliances, we also funded what we call design and development launch pilots. And these pilots were designed to help those institutions that were not quite where they needed to be, but they had the potential to broaden participation in STEM fields. So alliances takes this collaborative change model that we're looking at, strategies, lessons learned, and promising practices, along with evidence-based mechanisms from those design and development launch pilots in order to build toward this collaborative infrastructure. And so what we hope that they all include is the science of broadening participation literature, in addition to the research and evaluations from past and present efforts related to broadening participation in STEM, and then ultimately employ them at scale. So as you can see from this diagram, we have had over 11, close to 1,200 launch pilot partners, meaning that while we didn't have that many launch pilots, they all had partners. So that extended those launch pilot partners across the nation. We've had 229 alliance partners and planning grant partners that span the country. So if you look at this diagram, what you'll see is that we've had 70 design and development launch pilots, which are designated by that light blue hexagon. So it's hard to be able to identify specific areas, but at least we can give you an overview. There were 13 alliances, which are our largest investment, and those are the gold colors. So if you notice, we don't have as many alliances, but we do have 29 of these planning grants, which is that bluish, purplish color. But just so that you can see that we've had many conference awards, eagers, rapids, supplements, and co-funded awards over the years. This diagram gives you an actual look at the alliances that we've funded thus far. So the first two cohorts are your first two rows that you see. The Aspire Alliance aimed to diversify STEM faculty as well as build inclusive STEM teaching. The Kashi Alliance has the main goal of increasing Hispanic representation in computing. The first two network looks at STEM success in rural and first generation college students. iGen, one of our first alliances, looks at graduate students in the physical sciences, whereas STEM Core, which expanded, was looking at accelerating math for community college students. So we built upon those 5 initial alliances with 3 more, looking at geoscience across coastal areas, STEM education for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated individuals, as well as STEM Push, which looked at equity in college admissions. Our most recent 5 alliances are the ones going across the bottom row, which looks at identity inclusive strategies in computing, Latinx representation in STEM, specifically looking at institutional intentionality and experiential learning. The Engineering Plus Alliance looked at specifically underrepresented students in engineering. The Native Fuse Alliance looked at Indigenous participation in STEM, particularly through a food, energy, and water systems lens. And then finally, Tapped into STEM was our first alliance looking at students with disabilities. Underlying one of the foundations of the STEM alliances is this coordination hub and encouraging all of our participants, and part of their participation includes is that you become a part of a national network. And one of the reasons that we encourage people to join the network, and you don't have to be, it includes alliance to join the network, is that you now have the opportunity to be connected to over 2,700 plus network members. That number grows day by day, where you can share your work and your ideas in different fields of interest, things that might be specific to your region, to your institution, or quite a number of other characteristics. We have a private member directory that allows you that access. You can then engage in discussions and in forums to ask questions and share resources. Another aspect of the network is to attend these exclusive events that we have for network members. There are loads and loads of resources in our network library that will allow institutions to have access to the resources that are generated. And then finally, as part of an affinity group, there are a number of informal online discussions with network members in your specific interest area. The other thing that, and I mentioned this earlier, but the other thing that makes Includes stand out is that the coordination hub facilitates all of these activities, and they help us to build and maintain a strong national network. And so they coordinate to not only support the network, but they also support a shared measured platform. And what that shared measured system does is that it allows us to help our networks collect similar data and information about the alliances that are within our network, so that we can begin to track data over time. We can begin to understand practices, policies, and processes that are being implemented across the nation. And they also encourage the network to engage. And so they provide an area that allows the networks to engage and build capacity around the visibility of their efforts and the impact that they have on this national network. So the Includes network is not a place that one would apply as a single institution, but if you're beginning to build organizations or groups or similarly minded organizations, Includes is a place for you to consider. We do not currently have a solicitation, but we encourage you to keep an eye out on the Includes network website, because any announcements that we have about future solicitations will be there. We also, as everyone today has spoke to, we have an overall email address that, should you be interested or have ideas or like to talk to someone, we would encourage you, as was mentioned today over and over, to submit a one-pager, submit any questions you have to the NSF Includes at nsf.gov email address. You can always go to the website at www.includesnetwork.org to get information about the network. You can seek to join the network. As I said, you don't have to be a member to join the network. And the cover that is on the side of this document is that a number of years ago, we were asked, because NSF Includes was included as part of one of NSF's 10 big ideas, we had to create a report to the nation about what NSF Includes is doing and what the information that we had that is available. And so if you look at that report to the nation, it highlights the funded project activities and outcomes, and it describes the role of the coordination hub, as well as any connections we have to federal and industry partners. So we have made it a concerted effort to connect to other federal partners as well as industry partners. And so any of these reports are available at nsf.gov. So if you're interested in NSF Includes or anything around the network, please feel free to use these resources to get in contact with us. And so I thank you and cede my time for the rest of us to answer questions.
Now we'll begin the Q&A portion of the webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and go with one of the questions in the Q&A, which is from Dr. Gwen Marchand, and it reads, I'm curious if you could talk more about the extent to which the programs are receptive to diverse methodologies and modes of inquiry, and particularly those that are rooted in transformative, justice-oriented, or critical perspectives. I heard Dr. Frank explicitly address this issue related to the racial equity and STEM ed program, but I'm not clear on other programs. And are reviewers selected that are knowledgeable about such approaches? Thank you.
Okay, I'll go ahead since ECR, since we fund fundamental research, we fund quantitative proposals, qualitative proposals, mixed methods proposals. In terms of the reviewers, we select our reviewers depending on the proposals assigned to any particular panel. I encourage you, one when I was a prospective PI, I became a reviewer, and becoming a reviewer, having that experience, gave me a lot of insight into the ECR program, how reviewers evaluate and assess proposals based on intellectual merit and broader impact. And so, if you're interested in becoming a reviewer, please reach out to us. Go to the website, email us. We'll probably ask you for a 2-page bio sketch, just so we keep folders with prospective reviewers, and we reach out to you. And it's I think it's a good experience. And yes, the reviewers have when we assemble a panel to review proposals, we look for reviewers who have expertise in those particular areas. Keeping in mind, not every reviewer has expertise in every area. Nobody does. But we make sure that we have enough diverse types of expertise that the proposal will get be appropriately evaluated. And also, if a proposal, has something, I don't know, maybe an area that's really new to us and our viewers don't cover, we do have ad hoc reviewers where we send out proposals to people who are experts in the field in a particular area that we may not be familiar with, or and we ask them to review those proposals and give us feedback, and based on intellectual merit and broader impact. So all proposals that are submitted do get fairly reviewed.
I'll jump in and just echo everything that Dr. Smith just mentioned. And in addition to that, yes, feel free to reach out to the Racial Equity Program and send your CVs or your 2-page bio sketches to us. But also, if you look at our webpage, and I'm happy to put it in the chat, we do have a reviewer survey that's live. So you can always click on the link and add your information there, and then you will be included in a list of potential reviewers. And just a little bit about the review process, because I think it's related to the question around finding reviewers that have the expertise. We work really hard. So we do often have folks who have STEM education expertise, but we also call in methodologists and those who have particular theoretical backgrounds that are necessary to read the proposal. So we also work really hard at that. And we also try to give everyone a fair review in that we do not, that every proposal gets read and every proposal receives feedback, which is not always common. I work across programs, and that's not always the case for every program, but every project that we get gets discussed at panel within our program.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I have another couple of questions that actually came out of my Understanding MSI class. And so I'm going to target this question for Dr. Gonzalez. As far as evaluation proposals, are there priority points given to proposals that center Latinx students, faculty, and staff, and or how the proposal is serving Latinx students and other students of color?
Thank you, Dr. Rincon. Yes, with the presentation, I was trying also to address that, in particular, the HSI program, we focus in Hispanic serving institutions, and through them serving the Latinx students in the community. One of the ideas of including intersectionality as one of the points of evaluation for any of our proposals, we focus on that, and we focus that students can be first generation, can be Hispanics, underrepresented, students of colors, faculty. I mean, the projects we look to see and evaluate that intersectionality in the proposals, so it be considered for when as we evaluate proposals and projects. So yes, is evaluated, is considered, and is a very important part of a particular HSI program for the nature of that. As my colleagues mentioned, please reach out, send to the program officers, as Dr. Chris Smith mentioned, same experience. The past 5 years, I served as a reviewer in different panels, and my experience and expertise in higher education, in Latinas and STEM and HSI. So bringing coming with that perspective to different panels, along with my other colleagues, it really provided me the experience also to learn, but also to provide and participate and provide and share my experience and expertise in those panels. So please also volunteer. It's a great way to contribute, but also serve, but it's also a great way to learn. So apply for those different fundings and these different opportunities. And one more time, thank you to the University of Nevada and Las Vegas and to the College of Education for inviting us, particularly Dr. Hassan Dennis and Dr. Ricon, because I missed it in the beginning.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez.
I just want to chime in with additional thought. I also encourage prospective PIs to go to our program websites and do award searches. Look and see what we've funded. Look for proposals that are similar to your idea. Reach out to the PIs, ask them to share their proposals with you so you can see what a successful proposal looks like. Most of our PIs are very generous. You may take a couple of emails to get their attention, but, let them know that the program director encouraged you to reach out, and I'm sure if you promise not to share it, they would be happy to, looking at the portfolio too, looking at what we've funded, you can see what we haven't funded. And that might be where you have a light bulb moment. And it really gives you a sense of, we're not, we're open to new ideas. Or maybe you see something, an award, a proposal that was done, and you have a twist, an innovative approach to that same topic. So, it doesn't take a lot of time, just, do an award search, look and see. And I think it's really worth the time it'll take to do that.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. And I'm still taking questions through the Q&A function, and we're also opening it up in the chat function as well. Another question that I have is, what are some academic and non-academic outcomes that you hope to see from proposals beyond retention, progression, and completion?
I can start. So with NSF Includes, we are definitely looking for collaborative partnerships, but also for systemic change. So while our goal is not to fund specific programs that directly affect students, but rather, or directly affect faculty, but rather looking at the systems that they operate in. So the focus of Includes is looking for to improve the representation of those that have historically been underserved or underrepresented at scale, meaning that we're looking for systemic change across several organizations, several regions, several areas, national change, not just specific student outcomes at one individual institution.
Right. I'll just say that for the racial equity program, beyond the outcomes mentioned, I believe I mentioned that one of our goals is diversity of PI. So we are really looking to bring in more principal investigators of, historically excluded communities. So that's definitely one of our goals. We also hope that within this program, we fund work that really thinks about positionality of both researchers and participants who elect to do research. So one of our sort of phrases that we use within our group is that we want to fund research with people and not on people. So thinking a lot about positionality and how communities, particularly communities of color, communities that have been impacted by systemic racism, are framed within STEM research is really important for us. And one of the other things that we hope is that in some ways we push the boundaries around what STEM education is and can be, because there's lots of research in the name of supporting groups that have been marginalized by systemic racism that has not worked. So we are hoping to fund things that look different and think about things differently and serve communities in new ways, so that it's not always just about, a lot of times we can do access, but access doesn't always change. Like Dr. Rogers was mentioning, those larger systemic issues. So those are some of the changes that we look for outside of those standard outcomes within the program description.
Thank you, Dr. Frank. And I see that Dr. Fayazpour has her hand up.
Okay, I'm going to allow her to talk. 1 second, please.
Hello, thank you so much for all presenters and for the great information. Science is not my major. My major actually is multicultural education and international studies. But since I work with English language learners in different schools, and I help some English language learners in math and science classes, I see the challenges and the problem that English language learners they face in the schools, and especially in science and math classes. And I was witness that when I was working with them in some areas, they had great improvement. And that's why, STEM always is my concern, even though I'm not a science major. I was wondering if I have some ideas for proposal and, for racial equity issue. I was wondering if I want to send proposal, should I work with science teachers? I believe it is very connected, the work of something that it's my concern and science concern. How can I do that? Can I work with science teachers? And would you please let me know how I can, what is the process? Because I never sent a proposal for grant or anything else. Thank you.
I will just say I'm an anthropologist.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say social scientists have a role to play in research on STEM education, I'm like the living example of that. I'm a cultural anthropologist. I'm interested in issues around diversity. So the fact that you're not a STEM hard science person does not mean that there is still a place for you to be in among the EHR programs. It's just finding the right program. It depends on what you want to do. If you're looking to do research, ECR would be a place that we would ECL learners that would fit in with our broadening participation research area.
Mm-hmm.
You would be looking at social science theoretical frameworks to frame your research. If you're looking to focus on teachers, we have noise. We have other programs, a variety of different programs that it sounds like you have an interesting idea. You can reach out to us. Even if you reach out to me, you reach out to Toya or any of us, and our program is not the fit, we can direct you to a program where your topic can fit in and be funded, providing there's a match. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. There's a match with the program goal and what the proposal that you are writing. I also encourage you to reach out to your sponsored research program officer. They have a lot of knowledge about NSF programs. The PAPG, I put a lot of information into the chat. The proposal award and policy procedure, that can also be helpful to you, especially as a first-time PI. But I encourage you to look at, do award searches, look at proposals similar to what your idea. And that's a good first step, I think.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I think it's going to be beneficial because I was witness a lot of English language learners. They had goal or like dream to be to go to medical school or be engineer, or something like that. But I believe language deficiency or language barriers, not deficiency. Maybe it's the problem that they cannot improve. And I see a kind of very strong connection between science and something like, equity and racial, and also the funding that schools they get, it's different. And those areas that they have more English language learners, they have less funded. That's why, I see the problem. That's if I can work on it, I'm gonna be more than happy. Thank you so much for the information. I really appreciate it.
Well, I just encourage everyone to reach out, please. As Dr. Smith just mentioned, if for some reason, once you share your summary, your idea, we think it could be part of another program. I mean, we work in collaboration in several programs, and we know each other, and we collaborate a lot and work together. So we could direct you to the program that we think it could fit better to your idea, and can be a faster funding or something for. So we support your idea and your work. That's the main reason why we're here, to support your work.
Yeah, and one other thing I would add too, and I think it responds to the previous question that was posed. Yes, there are like really cool projects that come out of non-STEM focused, that come from non-STEM focused researchers and institutions. And also, one other piece of advice I would give is also think about your team. So that is one of those things. I think also think about the team that you put together when you're thinking about a topic, and the kinds of expertise that you need, because funding interdisciplinary work is always a lot of fun. And I think STEM needs more people who don't all think the same, right? So, yeah, please send us your ideas, and we've all put our links, I believe, in the chat. And yeah, please sign up to review. We need you.
Well, not seeing any other questions, I want to thank all the program officers for sharing about the different programs, the different opportunities that we have here at UNLV to really move the needle as it relates to racial equity and equity in general. In STEM. And so thank you so much. And I'm sure that folks on this call will be contacting you all to serve as reviewers and to share some ideas that they might have.
Thank you again for having us, and have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.